Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Future Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Juliette Lamar, and joining us today is John Christopher Arp. He is a fintech evangelist, and he's also the managing partner at Holt Fintech Accelerator. John, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So you've got this exciting new project happening, Holt Fintech Accelerator. Why don't you go ahead and give us some insight into exactly what it is? Yeah,
absolutely. So I was fortunate enough to come across a fifth-generation family, all built off the legacy, actually, of Sir Herbert Holt, a very wealthy and established pioneer businessman in Canada. And so this family, through many years of finance and entrepreneurship spirit, said, we want to give back to that entrepreneurship spirit, not just in Canada, but internationally, around the world. And so they said no better way to do that than through, they know finance, they know entrepreneurship. They said, let's do a fintech accelerator. I was happy to do so. I've been working and supporting with about 100 fintechs before that through various programs. And so we joined forces, and here we are. We're launching. We're in the midst of our application process. We have about, we're looking and seeking the 400 best applicants from around the world.
Very, very cool. So what are you looking for in applicants? What's going to make them stand out for you?
Yeah, will be a combination of things. We're very early stage, though, so we're more or less in the pre-seed to sort of seed range sort of area. Some of the biggest things that we look for ultimately is who can we support? Who can we best help? Who can we best accelerate, right? And so we actually have on our website a really awesome network of advisors who are either fintech or 1 degree separation of fintech. And so anyone who we think can best be supported by them, we actually get them in front, so the startups, we put them in front of those advisors, and we see how they interact and engage with each other. We get the feedback from those advisors to see how good they actually were. And these advisors are a mixture of financial institutions, venture capitalists, or tech experts and service providers. The second piece that we actually have, which I haven't seen anywhere else really, is we actually are fortunate to have an AI lab, part of Strategy AI. That's an applied research lab who will actually assist the team. So after we have the network and we have potential POCs with financial institutions, we can help them build their product. Because we're very bullish in the belief that any sort of fintech will have some sprinkle element of AI as you go forward. Lastly, the piece is because we're all connected to all these VCs who have access to a fund geared towards seed to Series B, we can actually do capital calls at this point through our list of partners. So once we, reach those milestones, we can, help them close their seed round, but set them up in such a way that would carry them forward all the way to potentially Series B in many cases.
Very cool. So when it comes to applying and getting involved with the accelerator program, walk us through that a little bit and what to expect.
Yeah, so you can go online and you would apply through our platform, our application platform. And so there's only 20 questions that I'd ask. It's nothing too challenging there. I would imagine all these teams, if I'm a startup, already have the answers ready for that. And then we would reach out to the top 100 for interviews at that point to see how they fare and if we think we can help them. We move forward, we get into selection day. And this is where the top 30 teams will be invited. We'll host this first selection day in Montreal, and there'll be 50-plus advisors there. And you can imagine it's sort of like a speed dating session. So no matter what, if you get to selection day, I think it's a fantastic opportunity to really expand your network in the fintech space. And then from there, based on the advisors and how they all kind of fared, and with all the discussions and what we heard from everybody and all the feedback, we select them, and the whole program commences in September.
Well, this is all very exciting. Tell us a little bit more about your team of partners, investors, and the advertisers that are really going to help people bring their startup to life.
Yeah. So some of the founding partners that were there off the gate, obviously the Holden family. This couldn't be possible if they didn't decide that they thought this was they wanted to give back to the entrepreneurship and fintech community. So with that, their network is superb. I can tell you from experience, because since I've recently joined this, I started April 26th, and I've actually felt that this accelerator has been an accelerator for myself personally. The other key partner, let's call them founding partner, with Strategy AI. And so that's where they've had already years of experience building out AI products that support different commercial entities, specifically like those of financial institutions. We have another partner, actually. It's from a past hat that I wore. It was a nonprofit that I had started, and that's where it was called Holt Fintech, and its goal was really to support early stage fintechs getting to the next milestone. So very much a community play to support talent. And that will also be partnered to do just that, help the team, the top startups that are selected, find the top talent so that they can, have the best teams in place to build their products and move forward. Other than that, we have many of this is on the website, but you can see a wealth of different FIs that we're partnered with, who are telling us the sort of problems that they're looking for, and therefore we're already looking and doing this sort of matching with solutions, and the solutions being startups. We have a bunch of venture capital firms that are on there, those local and international who will be supporting this as well, and then a bunch of other service providers, right? Because once it gets going, it could be anywhere from like legal services to accounting services. And another area that we work with is two other companies come to mind. Montreal International, they actually help the companies set up and locate in Montreal, because in Canada, if you actually create a satellite office, you can get up to 85% of your development costs subsidized by the government. So they help kind of set up these satellite offices. And there's a little secret with Montreal that some aren't so familiar of, but it's one of the hubs for AI in terms of the talent pool. Deep learning, which has been in development for 30 plus years, actually started in Montreal through one of the godfathers of it all, which was Yoshua Bengio. And so that sort of network is how we work with different partners to kind of plug them into that ecosystem.
Such a great base to really work with to bring your dreams to reality. When a company comes to you, what stage are you hoping they're at? Do you want them to have just the core idea? Do you want them to have some investors already? What's your happy place with that? Yeah.
So it could be anywhere from, let's say, a couple of PhDs with a wicked technology that's definitely been validated. And so we're going to test is this technology real through our partners? And also, is there a commercial use for this technology? Again, with our partnered FIs. It could be, that's as early as we would go. On the later side of the spectrum, maybe they're in market, right? So they're kind of starting to sell their product, but they're looking for those growth levers. And so that would be as late as we would go. So anywhere, what I kind of call the pre-seed to seed, maybe bridge round, but that's sort of getting the end of the spectrum.
And, when people are coming to you, you're going to be charging for your services in some way. So do you take equity? Is there a fee? How does that all work? Yeah,
that's a great question. How do we survive? How do we make this happen? Mm-hmm. So for sure, you can see us as offering, we'll be providing investment off the gate. So we can give up to $125,000, which is available for investment. We do expect terms similar to other accelerators that are out there, although we threw in one caveat, is that we actually are going to be flexible. And we're actually going to allow the startups to make us an offer. They're going to tell us what they think is fair. Of course, it needs to fall within a certain realm so that our venture math, so to speak, adds up. But we will be a little bit more flexible in those terms, a little more founder-friendly.
That's such a attractive thing, I think, for startup companies is you're always afraid of, how much am I going to be giving away of our idea, of our company in order to make it succeed. So that's great that you are flexible and allowing people to really give you an offer. That's such a game changer. Yeah, thanks. Well, we hope so. We'll try it out. I can tell you that from experience by working with the family that they've been very founder friendly, and they've found a way to always find win-win-wins between founders and investors and themselves. So that's what we'll go forward with. And that feels better to do business that way. You want everyone to be happy moving forward with something as opposed to starting off on a maybe slightly uneven footing. This makes it feel very sturdy and like you're on their side.
Yeah, and that's a big point, actually. In the financial institution world, sometimes when they're trying to work with fintechs, it's about getting the best deal, right? And in doing so, it really hinders the fintech from future development. And then this deal sort of gets soured. Trust is ruined from the start, and you're just off, not on good, proper footing from the get-go. So, it's really important to make sure that when things are set up between all parties, that everything is properly shared for the value for which everyone is putting forth, right? To ensure it gives it the best chances of succeeding. Otherwise, it's too short-term focused. We're really in it for the long term. Getting involved at this early of the game, we're expecting it to be, sure, maybe some quick wins, right, for those who get some exits in a couple of years, but the vast majority of them could be a 7-year play before we even see anything that comes out of this. And that's just the nature of the game. So we need to make sure that we're well set up with the proper foundation from the start.
Absolutely. So, working in this space, you have a bit of history working in this space. What are some of the things that you'd like to share with these young entrepreneurs who are coming through? What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people making?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. There's always lots of mistakes being made, and those are what I call not mistakes, but learnings, right? There's no better way to learn than to make some mistakes. I think one thing that I would like to communicate to all startups for that is to always remember to make sure that you're giving value to everyone who is supporting you along the way, and to make sure that you are thinking of those win-win relationships as you go forward. The reason I bring this up, there is a lot of support mechanisms that are available for startups these days, and it's great, and I'm very happy for that. And I hope that continues and that only increases, because I think the future of our jobs will definitely change, and these mechanisms are allowing that to happen. But in some cases, a startup's memory is short-term. They want everything for free, and they sort of forgot how they got there. And so when they look back, how much did the other players who supported them, did they get their sort of cut, or were they able to get to, what they needed to continue supporting the next generation of startups? I think that can hinder the startup in the long run, because over time, it is in many cases a small ecosystem. And so, you may be worried about potentially burning bridges, or in other senses, you may just not even close your deal to begin with. There are methods to, especially with if you want to do B2B sales, finding a way to really understand the value or what your customer needs, and delivering that, maybe even something on the short term to get you in there, where it allows you to build to a bigger term, a bigger scale sort of project, but making sure that you deliver value from the word go, so that you can increase your relationships and therefore increase the stake that you earn with that potential partner. So just being very value conscious, I guess, making sure that everyone is receiving the proper value for their efforts, I think is important to take away.
No, that's some really great advice, and hopefully people will be taking that to heart, because a lot of those things do ring true, and you can see it, in retrospect for a lot of companies that haven't maybe thought that through entirely.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like is the biggest change in the fintech industry over the last few years?
I would say that the biggest change probably has been, well, first and foremost, the idea of the word fintech. That word didn't really exist 3 years ago, 5 years ago. It depends who you ask. So that banner in itself was a new way and a great banner, a great brand that I felt really connected people and created this new movement behind it, right? Internationally around the world, this was sort of how happening. When that was happening, at first there was a fear of competition with the fintechs and the big financial institutions, and now it's more about, okay, we've moved beyond that. It's really about collaboration and how we can make more strategic investments into these players that can better help us, if I'm a financial institution, ultimately better serve my customer. So I think that has been the biggest change. I could mention maybe one more piece that I would like to add is the idea of artificial intelligence. Just because only in the last 8 years as well, it's really moved from what we had was the long winter where AI wasn't quite doing what it originally thought it could, and some people didn't believe it ever would get there. And then the big breakthroughs started coming out. And one of the biggest breakthroughs is actually how do you identify in a picture if a cat is a cat. So it's kind of interesting how that, once that was done, that sort of application, that technology was quite evolved and opened the door for us well for other applications. And so this was also, finance sector was no different, but you can also say that's in a lot of other sectors. So in the last years, I would say the AI component was a huge aspect of it.
And you've listed a few reasons why Canada and Montreal specifically is a great place for all this to be happening. Do you have plans to expand to other locations?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for the time being, we're just kicking off here for our first accelerator in Montreal and Canada and making sure that we have all the ties to make sure we have the best resources. So it's more of a proximity thing. But our list of advisors are international. So we have partners in Hong Kong, for instance. We work very closely with Supercharger. We're fortunate to have partnerships in Miami. We work with Rocket Fuel as a key partner for us. So those list of partners, there's many more. We're only going to increase those amounts. I'm very big on building bridges internationally and how we can trade fintechs, right, so that we can better accelerate their development. So there are times when I'm looking for fintechs. So right now I'm looking for fintechs all around the world to join and help them touch down, well, in this case in Canada. But there are times where I say, okay, well, we have these fintechs. Well, they have a great technology. We need them to go abroad and we need them to go internationally. And so we look for those partners and those hubs that we can connect to. Over time, does that mean we may have an accelerator in other cities, or would we, better change how we go about recruitment? Anything's up in the air right now. So, we'll see. We're launching our first accelerator right now. But yes, quite possibly we do foresee having accelerators potentially in other cities around the world.
That is so exciting to be able to expand in that way, and just, what a great space to be in. You are truly in a wonderfully creative space.
Yeah, I like to think so. I think there's plenty of opportunities that are available. So I think we're only at the beginning of this wave. I think, the life works in cycles and waves, and I think we're only at the beginning for this one on the fintech revolution. So I'm very excited.
And like you said before, but let's just remind our listeners, the best place if they have an idea, they have a company that they want to pitch to you, the best way for them to apply?
Yeah, the best way to apply would be through our website. They can go to the holtaccelerator.ai/apply. And I'll personally be reviewing all the applications actually starting in July.
So exciting. Well, John, thank you so much for joining us here today and giving us a really nice insider perspective as to the FinTech Accelerator that you're working with and the different things that people can do to help their company succeed.
It was my pleasure, Juliet. Thanks so much for taking the time to discuss with me.
Thank you. That is John Christopher Arp. He is the managing partner at Holt Fintech Accelerator. You can find them again at holtaccelerator.ai. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Future Tech Podcast. This has been Juliet Lamar.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.